Alright, so I got those 4 little bolts out, and I'm assuming this thing just comes right apart. You can see what the inside looks like. So we're just going to flip it around 180 degrees. Put it back on there. I'm going to check on that gasket. I need 2 hands to do that. Make sure that gasket's still in place. And then I'm going to tighten it back down again. Okay, so I got the screws back on there, and the pump is now in the right direction. You can see the arrows pointing to the right, and that's the way I want the water going back into the Boilermate. So I'll mount it. Hopefully I get it nice and tight and it's not going to leak on me, which would really suck. And I'm sure I avoided the warranty on it because you can see that the paint is now in a different position, but they're made to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and mount it on there now and screw it together. Okay, so I've got the circulator on. I've tightened all 4 bolts around here. I've tried to do both sides at the same time of each flange to make sure I got the gasket in there nice and flat, and I didn't over tighten it and I didn't under tighten it because they're kind of tricky to get just right. It's a square gasket, so you got to do, you know, half a turn on each side until you get nice and snug, and then just give it a little bit extra on each side to make sure they're nice and tight in there, but you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to end up with metal touching metal. So you can see there's a nice gap on each side right now. Kind of hard to see, but I've got maybe, I don't know, a little bit less than a 1/16 on each side of metal, a space between metal on both sides, and it looks like it's okay to me. So I'm going to go ahead and pressure test in a second. I've got the wires all done. I put the white to white and the yellow circulator wire to the black that was coming in from the Boilermate, which comes right off the switch on the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and tuck all the wiring back in, put the cover on, and then I'm going to turn the water on and see what happens. Alright, so it's all together, the wiring's done, everything looks like it's in the same place. I got my valve shut here on the end, and I come up, and they tell you not to turn on the pump until you've got water in the system, because it's a self-lubricating pump. It lubricates with water, so we got to make sure we don't turn any electrical connections on until we get some water going to the system. So first I'm going to make sure my check valve, my pressure relief valve here, is in the shut position, so no water is going to come out the side there and drain all over my floor. Next thing I'm going to do, I think, is turn on my cold water supply, which, if I follow the pipes down here, you got one label here that says cold water supply right in the middle. I don't know if you can see it, the middle one. So that comes up here. That's this guy. So you hear cold water going in the system, a little whoosh there. That's on. So I got cold water going into the Boilermate. And now I'm going to come back over here to my hot water from my furnace, which is coming in. And that's right under here. This is my water from the furnace that comes into the Boilermate. I'm turning that on. A couple little groans of pain from the pipes. So that water comes up, comes in, and it goes into my circulator. So far so good. I don't see any leaks here yet. And I think the last thing I gotta do is I gotta turn my return on. So I'm gonna come down to my furnace. Alright, hard to see. Let me put the light on maybe. No, you can't really see it. But I've got a return. I'm gonna turn on. So that's the hot water going back from the Boilermate to the furnace, like all the other zones. And make sure I haven't missed anything. And go ahead and release some pressure down here. Maybe see if I can get some air to come out so I can get my bucket. I'm going to put my bucket down by my return. Shut this off so we get a light on. It's slightly better there. So I've got my return here, and this is the return that comes from the Boilermaker. So I go up, follow it over, and my Boilermaker's got basically 3 water inputs down here. One is the boiler supply, which we got marked. That's what we repaired with the circulator. The middle one's cold water coming in, which I've turned on. And the last one over here is the boiler return. So that boiler return comes all the way over to the furnace. And I've turned that valve on over there. I'm going to see if I can get some air coming out of here now if I loosen this guy. Should get something. Okay. Go ahead and shut that off. Just let me double check this. I open this, I should get a lot of water. Something not working on the other end. Alright, so I'm going to shut that down. I should have water in the whole system at this point. Okay, so we've got everything back assembled. Wiring's all done. I've got the valve shut off. And we've gone ahead, we've powered it up. Breaker's on, switch is on. The Boilermate's heating up to 130. The other thing I had to do here is I had to not only put all the valves back on, so the cold water supply got turned on over here. The feed from the furnace got turned on. We shut down all the valves down by the return so that the water's flowing through. But once we did that, we had to repressurize the system. So up on top of the Amtrol here, there's a valve right. Hold on, I gotta get the flash on. Okay, so you can see at the top of the Amtrol here, there's a valve here to repressurize and add cold water to the system. Because we drained all the water out before when we emptied out the Boilermates, so I had to put that on. Repressurizes the system, and the way you can see the pressure going up is typically a little gauge like this. It shows right now we're at about 20 psi, and you want to be, I think, anywhere between 20 and 30 psi on the system. So you put that control on there all the way in the up position. Let's show you where it looks like. There's a little lever here that goes in the up position, and you'll hear the water flowing through the system. And I did that until I saw water coming out of the return valve down here, and I watched the pressure through the gauge until it got up, and then it shut everything down, sealed it up, and it was good to go. If the pressure gets too high, there's a relief valve on the top of this drain here. So you can see the drain. There's a pressure relief valve there that lets the water, the hot water out at 30 psi. So that kind of checks everything to make sure it's at the right pressure. So everything's working now. The Boilermate's up to temperature. We have hot water in the house. That's it.